Adi, thank you very much for joining us on the show. It's a pleasure having you here, and I'd love to talk a little bit about what you've been up to and your book, which was great. So, if you wouldn't mind for our audience, starting with a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me, Costa. I guess the most important things or things that people know me for is that I've built and sold two software businesses over the years. One of them is WooCommerce, which today I think is the second largest e-commerce platform in the world after Shopify, at least. And then probably kind of your forecasting and what we're chatting about is after selling my last book, last company at least, I actually had the time and space to look back at that kind of journey across two businesses and the things that I learned there, and especially the things that I learned building my second business, to ultimately kind of write a book in where I can share that journey and the learnings from that, and then as a kind of subsequent kind of venture or adventure at least is I started a new software business where my hope is that I can actually do that and kind of practice and build that business in a way that is congruent with the ideas that I share in my book.
So, let's dive into the book, Life Profitability. What is it about?
Life profitability, the new measure of entrepreneurial success. And what I really wanted to do here, Costa, is I wanted to share some new ideas that I think kind of augments the way we understand kind of the way we build businesses, the way we understand economic systems, the way we understand the capitalistic kind of model that is so prevalent in our world. And essentially kind of what it comes down to is instead of thinking about how do I just build a business that is financially profitable in the very narrow sense of the word? How can I build a business that is truly kind of life profitable? I.e., how do I build a business that serves my whole life and everything that that kind of life should include?
Can you tell us what you changed between the two businesses? You mentioned in the first one, I was reading the book, you were burned out. And then in the second one, you tried to apply these lessons. So, what was the difference?
My first business, I guess the context is that after university, I studied accounting, and then I spent 6 weeks in the corporate environment working for someone else before I made the jump to working on WooThemes that then became WooCommerce full time. And I think everything I learned, firstly about business, the context was I was very young. I learned things as I went, and I think in that much of that learning was also driven by the ambition to succeed. And a big part of what I now understand about that, at least, is when the definition of success becomes so narrow, i.e., how do I make more money in my business? How do I make a bigger business? Then one neglects all the other things that are important. And the way I now understand it is that that journey for me created a lot of collateral damage, a lot of kind of what I now call life costs, effectively. So, and I guess there in that is none of that was malicious, right? I think many of those things was kind of almost just part of that journey because I just lacked the awareness. As I said, maybe due to ignorance, maybe due to kind of my age, etc. But I don't think those things should be an excuse. And crucially, when I got into my second business, what my team and I actually got to, which was the kind of the precursor really for coining the term life profitability, was really thinking through how do we create a team environment and a business that is life and family first. And the way we described that was that we as a team, as a unit, we wanted to do fulfilling, profitable, challenging work. But we also recognize that the most meaningful experiences that we can have as individuals is outside of work with people that are not our colleagues, right? I mean, I think one of the things that I always chuckle at is when people describe their teams like their second family. I'm like, wait, hold on. Like you've got a family and the family probably at home and they probably deserve more of your attention. So that really is kind of you're thinking through that and trying to orientate the way we thought about business, not as a sacrifice of our ambition or kind of the capitalistic pursuits of making money and being profitable, but just in a way that also honored every individual on our team, at least, and every individual that we ultimately interacted with in a way that empowers them to live the most meaningful life according to their own definition, not according to a definition that I, as a kind of CEO or leader of the team, had to make up.
The big idea, let me know if this is right, is that with the first business, you were at a life loss because you sacrificed a lot of your personal things. And then you wanted to transition to life profitability where you put them first and you build a business around them.
Yeah, totally. Because I think the thing, Costa, where we get lost sometimes is in this idea of, and we often see it in the way we describe work-life balance, right? Where we kind of, believe, or people that pursue it believe that if you you just had work and you just had life as two independent things, that they could keep each other in balance. And I think that's where we already kind of, miss at least an opportunity to be better, right? Whereas the way I see it is that my work, my ambition, that professional pursuit is just one part of my life. And it's my responsibility to ultimately be clear about what those other things are that are important in my life. And the way I then think about it is, if I could define that life portfolio, right? So again, like borrowing from, financial terms here that everyone understands. If you had an investment portfolio, different stocks, different asset classes, etc., some crypto in there for fun, etc., you would essentially kind of look at, how do I diversify that? How do you kind of reinvest in those assets or stocks needed, etc. And that's really how I think about my life portfolio, right? Where if work, my ambition is one part thereof, what are those other things? And for me, those other things are everything from my family and my home life. And I describe my family as my highest value. So I really want to make sure that I make the kind of the due investments there, and I maintain and build those relationships, right? Other things are on the kind of in that realm of what is important to me, right? So my curiosity and thirst for learning, like I need to make sure that whatever I put or kind of make time for and invest in on a regular cadence includes some learning. And then, somewhere kind of you're using the crypto example again, like I need to be able to kind of geek out about wine, right? I need to make enough time to kind of also drink some good wine, but really geek out about it. Or, the only games that I play is a little bit of FIFA on the PlayStation, right? So all of those things, for example, I mean, that's a short version, but comprise my my life portfolio. And what I really need to make sure on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is that I'm making the required investments into maintaining the health of each of those individually. And if my business and ambition can't support that, then my portfolio suddenly becomes lopsided and I suddenly miss certain things. And some of those things, I think, crucially, are things that we can never have again, right? It's all about those once-off moments that, like, you can't say, listen here, I'm going to focus on the business for the next 10 years. I will have my kid's first birthday again in 10 years time, because no, they're going to be 11 or 12, whatever, at that, at that stage. So there are, I think, momentary things that requires our attention and presence crucially right now. And we need to set up our businesses, our work environments to really honor and respect and empower those things.
What does that really mean? Because if you're competing against people who don't respect similar boundaries, you may be at a disadvantage. Does that mean if I'm a service business, I shut off at 5 p.m. so clients go to other service businesses? Or you should say no to service businesses? So how does it break down?
I love that question because it probably has part of the answer is good, part of the answer is bad, right? And I think the answer that is 100% truthful is that if you're the only kind of good actor in any sector and you try and pursue this, then I don't think that it's easy at all. My team and I kind of experienced that. We try to, within the kind of my second business, we built marketing software for e-commerce brands. And we try to find what we call the kinder approach or friendlier approach, even in our pricing. And what we should have just done is we should have just done what our competitors did. And financially, the business would have been better off, right? Regardless of the fact that we got to a really good exit and acquisition at the end, the business would have been better off if we just followed the status quo. I think that part of it is true. What I also think is true, though, is that if we were to define what is good enough for ourselves, we could probably start kind of incrementally shaving off what the world, i.e. the others, competition, the market, etc., kind of demands of us, to really figure out like what do we need to be true in this situation for us to have that kind of meaningful, life profitable kind of just experience of life. So I think both of those two things are true. And I don't think that there's a clear-cut answer in every given situation, right? I think, for example, like in your example about in a service-based business shutting off at a certain time, maybe you can't do that every day, right? But maybe on some days you could do that, right? And I think, for me at least, Costa, the way I then think through that is, this is not meant to, and I also didn't write the book to suddenly kind of, for everyone reading it and that likes the ideas, I don't want this to be a kind of a full 180-degree turnaround of where you're at. Like for me, it is really about finding those like smaller things that you can incrementally kind of tweak and change in your business and in life, that ultimately creates more space that you can reinvest elsewhere in that life portfolio.
Because some people may think the business world is a little binary. So if I'm not as competitive as the next person, I'm going to go to zero. But you're saying that there is room for everyone as long as you make some small sacrifices. Maybe you don't take all the clients. Maybe you figure out who are the best clients who can work within your confined parameters.
Exactly, because the equation then shifts from how do I make the most money to how do I structure things that enables me to live the life that I want. And that kind of the latter doesn't ignore the financial or monetary aspect thereof, but it does ask a different question, right? And I think like being clear about what you choose to kind of, or what you choose to optimize for, like that sets the tone of what you're going to pursue. I think, on the kind of scale or spectrum of businesses that really succeeded doing this is look at a business like Patagonia, right? Left, right, and center. They're very, very clear about what they're optimized for. And at least in their case, that has not meant any compromise, at least in terms of size of business, right? They're $1 billion plus business by any kind of valuation method. So fair enough, they might be more of an outlier in that sense, right? But I don't have many other great examples of companies that do that, because those businesses don't tend to be very at least kind of very sexy in the media. That is me being life profitable, right? My kids know that they just came back from school, so that's why they're checking in here. But the point being is, I think, and what I would probably advocate for other entrepreneurs is beyond doing this for yourself and figuring out how to build your business this way. I think if we, more of us stood together and figured this out, like we could create those examples out there in the world showing that, hey, it is profitable, or it is kind of possible to build a business that's both financially profitable and life profitable, so that we have kind of, can be the next Patagonias of this world.
And somebody who picks up the book, what do you wish they get out of it, or what will they get out of it? Is it a mind shift, or is it a process framework?
Yeah, so mostly inspiration, to be honest, Costa. I think for me, at least, a big theme in the book is that, everyone's version of life profitability is going to be unique. And I definitely did not want to create a kind of, here's a 7.5 step blueprint to kind of figuring this out. I think individuals are more unique and more magical than me trying to, propose any single kind of blueprint that's going to work for them. So the book includes a lot of inspiration, many kind of, ideas based on my learnings, my experiences, right? Where I try and illuminate kind of what is possible in terms of how to slightly shift the way you think about business, think about kind of running your business. So that bit really is there. And as I said, like the hope there is that I spark a few ideas that, ultimately leaves you feeling that, hey, this kind of, 80-hour work week thing that gets proposed to entrepreneurs, where we tell each other it's okay to kind of do the short-term pain, long-term gain thing. It's okay to miss life because this is only a phase, it's only a season, it's going to be a roller coaster. Like all of those other things might not be as true as we kind of sometimes believe they're true, right? And just because we keep hearing them doesn't mean they're true. So the book is really there to, at least partly, to question those things, break that down, and propose an alternative way of going about building a business.
All right, and let's move on to the quick fire questions. What's your second favorite business book?
Business book, probably the one that pops to mind immediately is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, founder of Nike, purely because it's such a long journey. But the one that it's not a business book, the one that I most often recommend is Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. It's just been a fascinating book for me to kind of reread every couple of years. And it just had a profound effect a couple of years ago in my life, and particularly as an entrepreneur when I first read it.
And what do you wish you knew when you were 20?
That moments matter, and that to make the most of any moment, I need to be present in that moment.
Awesome, thank you. And how do people follow you? How do they get in touch? Like, are you on LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yeah, so you can totally find me on LinkedIn. I'm active there. Social channel that I'm most active on is Twitter, where I'm at 80 ADII, and that's also the same URL for my blog, which is 80ii.me, where I try and post and publish as often as I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Costa.